Welcome, Christian Warriors. My name is Keith. This is our weekly newscast where we go over all of the attacks on Christians around the world, and we talk about crime that happens at churches in the United States. We're going to tell you tips and things that you can do to protect yourself, your church, and maybe help those in Africa that are under persecution from Muslims attacking our fellow Christians over there. This week, we have a terror update that talks about ISIS-linked mass killings at Catholic Maternity Center. We have pastors that were killed in Africa after being kidnapped and held hostage for more than a month. We've got some ISIS intimidation of Christian communities in Syria. We've got new ISIS drone activity near Raqqa in Syria that just kind of highlights a growing threat that I've talked about repeatedly, and that's about the growing threats of drones against Christian churches in America. And that but when we are attacked here in the United States, how those drones could be used against us and how we can counter that drone activity. We're also going to talk about all the violent crimes that happen at churches in the United States, including a child that was tied to a chair by a church preschool teacher. We've got a daughter that was charged with assaulting her mother in Massachusetts. We got people that were fighting in church parking lots. And of course, we've got a multitude of sex crimes that occurred. And of course, after talking about these incidents, we will talk about what you can do to better protect your church and how to fight evil within your church. But before we get into all these stories, I want to thank our sponsor, Carnival. Carnival's a new sponsor. I was referred to them by the people at Survival Dispatch News. I love it. This is my favorite top sirloin beef. It is raw, uncooked, premium grass-fed beef that's freeze-dried. And it's great if you're a prepper. This is wonderful. This is part of my preps. I keep this, a lot of this. And if the time ever comes, I've got over a pound of uncooked meat. I soak it in water for 20 minutes, and then I can cook it just like normal beef. I've been eating this. It actually works out really well. I also do a lot of overland camping. I've been using this when I overland camp. And this is actually better than trying to find a cooler to put all my stuff in. I just bring this up, soak it for 20 minutes, and then I cook it right up and eat it. And it has made my life in camping and overlanding and prepping so much easier. Check them out at carnival.com. I want to thank them for sponsoring this episode of our weekly newscast. All right, first up, we've got ISIS-linked mass killings at a Catholic Maternity Center in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, these were ISIS-aligned ADF rebels that carried out a series of brutal attacks in Lubero, Democratic Republic of Congo, between November 13th and 19th, killing at least 89 people and specifically targeting a Catholic health facility where women were seeking maternity care, and they were murdered by these ISIS terrorists. Now, these coordinated assaults highlight the group's continued strategy of striking soft Christian-associated sites in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, contributing to an ongoing regional instability and reinforcing a global pattern of extremist violence against Christians. If you want to read more, head on over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com, where I publish all of these stories. Every Friday, I'm a little late this week. We gave a class in Texas where we had hundreds of followers show up to learn about church safety and how to improve their church safety ministry. It was wonderful. Thank you for all of you that showed up. I'm looking forward to the next one. Next up, we got ISIS intimidation of Christian communities in Syria. There were two coordinated forms of intimidation against Christians that occurred recently in Syria. On November 28th, a group of 13 ISIS supporters rode motorcycles through Homs, waving ISIS flags near a local church and shouting slogans at residents who were putting up Christmas decorations, creating a direct and deliberate act of fear against the Christian community. At the same time, threatening ISIS graffiti appeared in Christian-adjacent areas in and near Aleppo, declaring the Islamic State remains, signaling the group's persistent presence and intent. Now, together, these incidents demonstrates ISIS continues to use symbolic harassment like public displays, graffiti, and proximity to churches to test reactions, assert influence, and prepare potential follow-on attacks. And that's a tactic that's noted throughout the region and one that has implications for Christian communities far beyond Syria. You can expect this in other places like Africa, and I'm sure soon, maybe in the West. Now, another important update to bring you is ISIS drone activity near Raqqa, and that highlights the growing threat of drones by ISIS terrorists. Now, security forces in Raqqa shot down 2 ISIS-operated drones that had been launched from areas controlled by pro-regime elements. It indicates a troubling increase in coordination and technological capability among ISIS cells in the region. Now, this incident shows a shift toward more sophisticated tactics as drones allow ISIS to conduct reconnaissance or target security positions with reduced risk to their personnel. Now, the use of drones near population centers, especially in a city with historic Christian communities, demonstrates a tactic that could be repurposed against soft targets, including churches, as ISIS continues adapting its method to bypass traditional security measures. Now, I've been warning readers and followers of Christian Warrior Training about drone warfare that can be used against the United States. Now, some have chosen to make light of my warnings about drones, and I think that's a little foolish. Terrorists are learning how to use drones against soft targets like churches, and you should expect that some type of drone warfare can and will be used against the United States at some point. The testing bed right now is Ukraine, Africa, and the Middle East. If you think it's not going to come here, you've got another thing coming to you. You should pay attention to some of the current counter-drone measures that work and start thinking about how you might implement that for yourself. As for church security, the easiest thing you can do is you should always have people stationed in the parking lot. 75% of all crime at American churches occur in the parking lot. Active shooters, anybody with bad intent, they're going to have to start in the parking lot before they come inside. So your first layer is outside in the parking lot. You should train your people to start looking up and around and start listening for drones and start looking for drones. Right now, the easiest thing to do is if you see a drone, look to see if it has a payload. If it does, get everybody to run inside and then stay inside. That's going to be your best bet. And if they're by their vehicle, to stay in their vehicle. If it doesn't have a payload, you should look to see if it's just doing reconnaissance. And if it is, you should try to find that drone operator. They should be nearby somewhere. Start going mobile and try and figure out where they are. I have more info on drones over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. We have free training for you over there. You can head over there now. The best way to support my mission in what I'm doing here at Christian Warrior Training is to do a paid subscription over there. That keeps everything running over here. Because of people like you and Carnival and others, we're able to keep this going because all of these videos get demonetized, and it helps us fund our mission, which is to provide free training for all of you. All right, next up, we're going to move on to all of the violent crimes that occurred in the United States over the past week. I have to say, this is one of the few weeks where we don't have a shooting and we don't have a stabbing that occurred at a church. It happens almost every week. It did not happen this week. So praise God that he protected all of us while we worshiped. Now, as we talk about all of these threats, and next up, we're going to talk about a toddler that was tied to a chair by a church preschool teacher. Before we get into this stuff, it's going to make it, you're going to look at this stuff and be very scared to go to church. Don't. Your church is very safe. The chances of something happening at your church is minimal, but it's not zero. So you should pay attention. The other thing is, God told us we'd be persecuted, but he also watches over us and protects us. So don't stress too much about it. Don't turn your church into a bunker. Just have a church safety ministry and pay attention. All right, let's go on to this toddler. Stuff like this is sad. I've got some stuff to say about this because it's another church that was hiding their dirty laundry. Now, a teacher at New Prospect Baptist Church Preschool in Anderson, South Carolina was fired after a photo surfaced showing a 2-year-old child tied to a chair on November 14th. It's an incident where the parents say that they were not informed about this incident until a week later when another staff member shared the image. Now, according to the family, the teacher who witnessed and reported the restraint to the interim director saw no action taken and resigned before notifying the child's mother. The preschool stated that external agencies investigated the matter and that staff member responsible was terminated upon confirmation of the policy violation. Now, state inspection records also show multiple issues at the facility in November, including a prior violation involving bleach used around children. Now, the family has withdrawn their daughter from the program, and although the incident was reported to law enforcement, officials determined it did not meet the threshold for criminal charges. Here's my thoughts on the whole thing. You're a mandated reporter. You have to report anything that you suspect is child abuse or child sexual assault. Now, when I look at the photo, it doesn't look like it meets the criteria to charge somebody with a crime. It is very bad judgment. But that's not up to you to determine if a crime was committed or not. You suspect it, so you should report it. Now, good on them for firing that teacher, but you still have to report it to law enforcement. Now, I tell you, as a cop, I saw many times where people that were mandated reporters did not report when they were supposed to. And you should check your state's mandated reporting law to see if you are a mandated reporter working in a church. More than likely you are. Now, I got to tell you, we're going to talk about a story coming up. Somebody at a church was arrested because they did not report a crime when they were mandated to. I gotta tell you, cops out there love arresting people that are supposed to be mandated reporters that don't. It brings us joy to arrest you for failing to do your job to protect the children. Now let's jump back over to the newsletter, because in the newsletter, I will always put Bible verses that I think are super important. And here we're gonna go to Matthew 18, verse 6. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Okay, I'm telling you right now, the Bible has so much direction about justice for victims and how we're supposed to protect children. And putting your church above the safety of children is just sickening to me. Make sure you report things that you're supposed to. Don't worry about the church's reputation. Your reputation will hold strong if you come out in front of this and say, we notified authorities. We fired the people involved. We're taking care of the children. We're sorry this ever happened. This is what we're doing to make sure that nothing like this happens ever again. All right, next up. Police in South Hadley, Massachusetts responded to a disturbance at a local church on Thanksgiving afternoon where they found a mother and a daughter engaged in a physical altercation. Now, officers reported that after the verbal dispute, the daughter allegedly punched and spat on her mother, as well as nearby bystanders. Now, the woman, a resident of Springfield, was arrested and charged with domestic assault and battery, along with 2 additional counts of simple assault and battery. You wouldn't believe this, but as a cop working Thanksgiving, this is all we did was go to family fights, including family stabbings and shootings, where like sons are stabbing their fathers, fathers shooting sons, assaults, and all this stuff going on Thanksgiving. And it's horrible. And it happens pretty routinely. Now, as for the church, though, domestic violence leads the list for reasons of violence at a church. Stay informed about your congregants' troubles so that you can intercede when necessary or provide a watchful eye for trouble. Now, pastors, you must communicate potential troubles with your safety ministry so that they can stop problems before they occur. You want to work in tandem with you to protect everybody at the church. They are also pastors. They are also your eyes and ears, so they can see trouble brewing and come get you and let you know so that you can go ahead and provide counseling and help de-escalate any situation that comes up. But you guys have to work together. Next up, 2 individuals ages 35 and 37 were arrested in Lexington, Kentucky after deputies with the Laurel County Sheriff's Office found them in a church parking lot off Wren Road early Wednesday morning. Reportedly, they were screaming at each other while they were intoxicated. Now, both individuals had visible injuries and were charged with assault and alcohol intoxication in a public place. Paramedics treated their injuries on scene before they were taken to the Laurel County Correctional Center. All right, I'm just going to drift off subject for a minute, and I want you to look at the 2 booking photos that you see here. Now, whenever I arrested people, no matter how angry they were mad, how angry they were with me, I always told them when they get their booking photo taken, they should smile. Why smile? Well, when you look at the 2 photos, who looks the meanest? When they publish your booking photo for anything that happens, you want to make sure that you're smiling and you look happy, even though you're being arrested, because when they put your photo in the press, you don't want to look like a grumpy old person that looks guilty. Just saying. All right, off that topic. Hopefully you never get arrested and you have to worry about that. Now look, most crimes occur in the church parking lot at around 70% of crimes. And most of those crimes happen outside of service hours, exactly like what we see here. Now make sure you have a 4K video system to help police identify and prosecute troublemakers and help monitor your church problems. Now, I've seen some comments in some of these videos where I talk about having a 4K video system, and some of the comments will say like, it doesn't do anything for you. Who cares about helping prosecution? Man, I don't want to say that's the dumbest comment, but the simplest thing you can do to protect your church is have a 4K video system, burglar alarm, fire alarm. Those are the 3 things that you can do above all else to protect your church. That will take care of a majority of crime. That 4K video system, I can tell you if something happens at your church and they don't know who it is, or you don't know who it is, you can show it to the police, and I guarantee you some cop out there will be able to identify who the suspect is very easily, or we can publicize it on social media, and then one of the family members will turn them in eventually. So that 4K video system, super important. And then if you have something like an assault by 2 drunken people inside your church parking lot, it does help the police do their investigation and deal with those people, even if you don't want them prosecuted. All right, we're going to turn to sex crimes now. This is the most depressing part for me. Stick with it because we're going to talk about some of the horrible things that occurred and what you can do to make sure it doesn't happen at your church. Now, a pastor from South Bay Church of God in Torrance, California, is facing a felony charge after an undercover sting operation conducted by the citizen group Caught Fished alleged he attempted to meet someone he believed was a 16-year-old minor for lewd purposes. The 50-year-old pastor, who has prior affiliations with a Florida church and a past political campaign, was reportedly recorded exchanging explicit messages and arriving at a meeting location where he was confronted by the group. Church members expressed shock at the allegations, noting that they were unaware of details beyond what was shown in the released video. The pastor was released on his own recognizance and is scheduled to appear in court on December 12th. Now look, pedophiles target jobs where they can have easy access to children and potential victims. That includes coaches, teachers, and clergy. Now, a background check on a potential pastor for your church shouldn't include just a background check by a computer. It should be an enhanced background where you talk to neighbors, family members, friends of family members, old congregants, old employers, everybody that you can think of, including people that know of people that know the person being backgrounded. Now, you're going to be amazed at what you will uncover. You will uncover so many things that will indicate that that may be a person you don't want to hire because they have tendencies that would be bad for your church. Some due diligence will save your church from something that ends it later down the road. All right, a priest in central Minnesota has been charged in Stearns County with third-degree criminal sexual conduct, stalking, and multiple counts of threatening violence after a woman reported ongoing abuse to spiritual guidance she received over several years in Little Falls and St. Cloud. According to investigators, concerns about inappropriate behavior were raised to diocesan leadership as early as 2022, leading to administrative leave and treatment, though the priest later returned to ministry under restrictions and was subsequently appointed to several parishes across multiple communities in 2024. Allegations detailed in the criminal complaint include physical assaults, threats to kill the woman, dangerous behavior while driving, and ongoing inappropriate contact, prompting the diocese to again remove the priest from ministry pending judicial proceedings. Oh my, if this only could have been predicted. If this only could have been predicted that something like this would have occurred. All right, why would you bring somebody back if it was so serious enough to send them to treatment? Now, we don't do enough to protect the vulnerable in our churches. People stop coming to church because of incidents like this. Even if they're not the victim, they read about it in the paper and they choose not to come to church and to grow their relationship with our Lord. Now, we need to do a better job as the body of Christ to stop this type of stuff. Now, the Lord can forgive them for their sins, but we have to protect the innocent. And that includes not letting them alone with vulnerable people and children. Now, I just want to go back over on our newsletter. You guys know that I like to put Bible verses in to help remind us of our duties. Psalm 82:3, give justice to the weak and the fatherless, uphold the rights of the afflicted and the destitute. Did the church do that? I don't think so. Titus 1, verse 7, for an overseer must be above reproach. If it was so bad that you sent that person away to get treatment, and then now you bring them back, they should not be in a position where they have contact with people like this. Again, the Lord can forgive them and they can seek forgiveness for their sins. But us, we need to watch out for people and not put them back in a position where they're going to do it again. It blows me away. We're failing miserably to protect people. I go to church every Sunday. I'm going to a church meeting later today. I'm at church almost every day. I'm doing something to serve the Lord every day, and I love it. And I wouldn't do anything else. It's the most satisfying thing I've done. But if we don't get a hold of this, people are going to stop coming, and we have the potential to lose people. We need to do something to control this, and it starts with you at your church. All right, let's go back and remember when I told you cops love to arrest people for failing to report crimes when they're supposed to? Well, here we go. A 55-year-old pastor at Ignite Life Center in Gainesville, Florida, was arrested after allegedly failing to report multiple child sexual abuse incidents connected to the church and discouraging others from reporting them. Personally, if I was the cop investigating this and I found out that they were discouraging others to report, I would do witness intimidation on them. My personal opinion. I don't know why the law enforcement didn't do that. Maybe it doesn't fit Florida statute. If you got probable cause, that's what I would do. Now, according to a sworn complaint, church leadership became aware of abuse beginning in 2019, involving a ministry student who later went on to assault additional minors during a 2021 summer camp where he had unsupervised access to children. How do we still have people that don't have policies that prohibit something like that? I don't understand, but let's move on. Despite multiple disclosures to leadership, no report was made until 2023. and further allegations emerged involving teenagers connected to other church leaders. The pastor, who also serves as a police chaplain, dude, this just gets worse, pleaded not guilty to the felony charge and awaits a January court date. I hope they use his position as a police chaplain to show that he knows better. All right, now my thoughts. Now, remember, I told you earlier that cops are happy to arrest you if you fail to report as a mandated reporter. Now, I know the arresting officer had to have some satisfaction in this arrest because I know that I would. Now, why are we failing to report crimes in a church? I believe it's because people are afraid of the church's reputation, and they're putting the church's reputation above justice for victims. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11, take no part in the unlawful works of darkness, but instead expose them. We're done. That's it. Report everything. Stop it. All right, next up, we got a volunteer youth leader charged with possession of child sexual abuse material at a Houston area church. 27-year-old volunteer youth leader at Second Baptist Church in Harris County, Texas, was arrested November 26 and charged with one felony count of possession of child sexual abuse material. Now, according to the court documents, investigators were first alerted in August after a report that the volunteer had allegedly confessed to struggling with viewing illegal content while actively serving in a role supervising children. A search warrant was executed at the individual's home, and it led deputies to recover 23 illicit images from personal devices, 14 of which had been previously identified by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Digital forensics also revealed browsing history consistent with the recovery material. The individual was booked into the Harris County Jail on a $15,000 bond with conditions prohibiting contact with areas where children gather and preventing any future church volunteer involvement. This is your church. You turn them in like happened. And then you put out a press release stating that you don't condone this. You've taken appropriate action. And these are the steps that you're doing to make sure that you protect the children. You have to look to make sure that there was no child sexual assaults that occurred at the church by anybody. Start changing policy and hope it doesn't end your church. All right, next up, we're going to move to arsons and fires. We always have 3 sexual assaults that occur minimum every week by church staff upon children or adults. But we always have at least one arson that occurs, and then obviously multiple crimes against persons. Now, authorities arrested a 49-year-old man on Sunday after an early morning arson damaged Calvary Baptist Church near State Route 95 in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. First responders arrived around 1:30 a.m. to find an active fire inside the building and signs of forced entry. Investigators later determined the blaze had been intentionally set. Now, surveillance footage, thank God for a 4K video system, helped identify a person of interest, prompting deputies to locate a nearby trailer and take the suspect into custody several hours later. Again, a 4K video system worked perfectly here. You know, some cop took a look at it and knew exactly who it was. Officials initially warned the public that the individual was considered armed and dangerous, and charges are still pending. Next up, 2 stolen vehicles crashed into a care building belonging to Mount Zion Progressive Missionary Baptist Church in St. Petersburg, Florida, prompting a police investigation. Now, witnesses reported that several teenagers fled the scene after the crash, which caused significant damage to clothing and food supplies used for community outreach. No injuries were reported, and church leaders expressed gratitude that the incident did not result in fatalities. As repairs begin, the church has temporarily moved its human resources services to another building while continuing its mission. All right, now look, again, we have repeated themes of vehicles colliding with churches. Every week we have at least one. Sometimes they're intentional, including a man that was purposefully running over children going into the church daycare. Now look, although this one is unintentional, you have to prepare for your pedestrian areas in your church for ramming attacks as well as major collisions like this. So you're gonna have to put up bollards and other traffic devices to protect your people. Now, I hear from church people quite frequently, or church leaders quite frequently, they don't want to put up bollards or other traffic devices because it looks unfriendly. Well, you know what looks unfriendly? Your people getting run over. It's not just about ramming attacks, but there have been a significant increase in ramming attacks against churches here in the United States. You now have a duty to protect your people. You can put in bollards that don't look obstructive, that don't look unwelcoming. Some churches use large rocks. Now they have to be, I have information over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com over vehicle ramming attacks, and it talks specifically about it has to stop a 3,500-pound vehicle going 35 miles an hour within 3 feet or something like that. There's whole rules and regulations about that. But I gave all sorts of options of things that you can do to protect it. Now, a temporary way of stopping it would be just to park vehicles in front of entrances and pedestrian parkways before people arrive. And that's an easy way of doing it temporarily until you get the funds to do something permanently. But you have to do something. You have a duty to protect. That duty to protect is actually case law, meaning that if people get rammed and run over and your church did nothing to protect those people, you could lose a lawsuit. And it's our duty to protect our people anyways, right? We want to protect our people coming to church. All right, let's move on to property crimes. A 46-year-old woman from Marion, North Carolina is awaiting trial after being charged with embezzling $122,000 from Bible Baptist Church, where she served as a treasurer for more than a decade. According to Marion Police Department, church leaders discovered significant financial discrepancy after noticing bank balances did not match expected totals, later learning that donations designated for various ministries, including missions, were not reaching their intended destinations. All right, now look, I did an article over at Christian Warrior Training called 5 Steps You Can Take to Protect Church Offerings. And it tells you everything that you need to do to protect the tithes that people give to you. One of the most simplest forms that you can do is regular audits. Now, regular audits doesn't mean that you don't trust your people. What it means is that you're keeping everybody honest and you're keeping track of the money that your people give you, hoping that it goes to help other people. So go check that article out over at christianwarriortraining.com. There is a link to the article in our newsletter that we just put out today. All right. Now for our international story, an Anglican priest who was abducted from his home in Nigeria on October 28th was killed after spending nearly a month in captivity. Now the priest was taken along with his wife and daughter during a surge in kidnapping and violence that affected the Northwest region, a situation that's drawn international concern. Now church leadership confirmed the killing in a public statement expressing deep sorrow, noting that the incident reflects the broader security crisis impacting religious communities throughout the country. Now the Nigerian government has come out and said that it's not a Christian genocide, and I disagree with that. And they're saying it's affecting all religions. It is clear that there is a genocide of Christians occurring in Nigeria and the entire region. And I report about that pretty continuously. Pretty much every week I will always put in a story. But I think we're losing about 17 Christians a day in Nigeria alone. It is the single largest place for Christian persecution by and large anywhere in the world. Okay, when you leave here, I know that everything here I talk about freaks you out, and I don't want you to. Our churches are filled with love and joy, and it is a great place to be. Just have a safety ministry, and if you don't have one, head over to christianwarriortraining.com. We have resources for free for you to help start a safety ministry, including a step-by-step guide that tells you how to create a safety ministry. It's my gift to you as a fellow follower of Christ. If you want to support what I'm doing, a paid subscription over at christianwarriortraining.com helps me help everybody else get free material like this. I want you to pray for all the affected churches that we talked about and all the Christians that were affected by the violence that we talked about this week. I want you to pray that the Lord saves them from the situations they're in and saves us from this persecution. I want you to pray for their healing. And I also want you to pray for the offenders. And that's going to be the hardest part. Pray for the offenders that they repent for their sins, they find Christ, and they stop their evil ways and ask for forgiveness. The other thing I want you to do is remember your ABCs. Always be caring.